Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. I have been doing just an hour or two's worth of work on repairs that have built up in the shop before I go on to the batch of mandolins that I'm building. And I've taken in two more repairs this past week. A mandola with that'll take a fret job and a planing, and a mandolin that needs a new bridge. Both of them I built. And then we have this marked guitar that we briefly mentioned last week, which needed some cleaning up around the sound hole that had been boogered up a little bit and some action issues. And I think it's pretty much clean, and I'm going to steel wool off the edge there a little bit. And I've already done the fret work, and I think basically we're ready to put this thing back together. So we're going to do that first, and then like I said, in an hour or two every morning, I'm going to try to catch up some of these repair works, and then we'll start in on the batch, which, by the way, you saw last week me put on the first fretboard extender and mandolin number 2 in the batch. And so hopefully by this afternoon, I'm going to be gluing that fretboard on. So, and that's basically what we'll be trying to, the procedure that we're going to try to follow all week. A little bit of repair, gluing fretboards on. Let's get started. It's fixed. Job number 2 on Monday will be to add this piece of binding to mandolin number 1 here. So first we have to unwrap it and then fit everything. Here we go. One more piece glued on, not too many left. And while that piece is drying, we can move on to the next job, which is gluing the fretboard on mandolin number 2. Now, the things that need to be done before we can do that is we need to install the truss rod. And the truss rod fits down in the truss rod slot. I have this appropriately shaped piece of wood that will fill in all of the gaps in this slot. Like this right here. And I'm going to use some 5-minute epoxy to glue this whole mess in just like you see it. And then after that's dried, we'll clean off the excess wood, level this fretboard up again, and set this fretboard on here. Take a pencil, mark these wings on this fretboard extender. Somebody had wrote me a comment or an email or something asking about when did I do that, and the answer is right now. And then we will take this gouge and do that scoop or that scallop out here, and then everything will be flat, ready, shaped for the fretboard. So within an hour from now, I should be gluing on a fretboard. We'll lay this off to the side and it will be good to go in just a few minutes. I have a little homemade hand planer that I use to level all that stuff up. And here I just like to use a chisel. Then a quick going over with sandpaper and a wooden block just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, everything is fit. We're good to go. All we have to do is pencil the wings here. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Pencil all that off right there. And we're gonna put the scallops in with a gouge. Just start working things out. I'm going to rasp just a little with a half round rasp to even out the chisel marks or the gouge marks. And we are ready to spread glue. Now I'm going to spread glue on the surfaces here and here, put them together, and then we're going to put this thing upside down like this in here. These things will line up the fretboard to keep it from slipping off. And then we're going to screw these things down to administer the clamping pressure. It is now Tuesday morning and time to wrap this little double S piece of binding on mandolin number 1. Well, there's that piece of binding on mandolin number 1, and now on to mandolin number 2, which is ready to come out of the fretboard gluing jig and have the peghead overlay glued on. So I am now ready to glue the peg head overlay onto mandolin number 2. I'm going to do it just like this right here against this block. Top stick everything down. When I'm done with this, I'm going to step right next door here, take out mandolin number 3 from where I was gluing the fretboard extender on, take it back over there and put a truss rod in the neck in preparation for gluing its fingerboard on. Each and every day this week was pretty much a repeat of the previous day. I would start the morning out with a little bit of repair work, move into the big room and put a piece of binding on mandolin number 1, and then I would move on to the jobs that have to be done before I could glue the fretboards on all of the other mandolins. And those jobs included sanding the tops down to 220 grit and wetting them down, raising the grain, sanding them one more time, 220 grit, final sizing and fitting of the fretboards here, making sure that all of the necks were, the sides of the necks were perfectly straight and exactly where we wanted to be so these fretboards could be glued on, making the fretboard extenders. Once they were made and fit to each particular mandolin, then I would shoot some finish underneath the things and then glue the fretboard extenders on. We'd install the truss rods in them and the little filler strip on top of that. And after all of that's been glued on, then you level the gluing surface, glue the fingerboard on, and then after that's done and it comes out of the fretboard gluing jig, I would glue the peg head overlay on. So each day was pretty much just a repeat of the previous day. Now the counting amount or the final score on the scoreboard by the end of the week, and it's Friday afternoon now, is that all of the binding, every piece of binding has been glued on the back of mandolin number 1. Mandolins 2, 3, and 4 have everything glued on them. Fretboards, fretboard extenders, all that's been glued on, and the peg head overlay is been glued on, so they're good right there. Mandolin number 5, just a few minutes ago, had the peg head overlay glued on, so it's still in there on the prop bar deck with that. Mandolins 6, 7, 8, and 10 have had their tops 220, grain raised, 220 again, and the all of the fretboard sizing, the widths and lining up like I mentioned earlier. All that's been done, so they're ready to have the fretboard extender made and that much done. And somehow or another, mandolin number 9 kind of jumped out of its place in the line, and it is in there having its fretboard glued on right now. It's in the fretboard gluing jig. So that's where we're at the end of the week. I'm going to pick right back up with the same routine next week, and I certainly hope that you'll come back and visit with us a little bit next week on the next episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. We'll see you then.